Hey everybody, Card Bandit here. Hey everybody, Card Bandit here. What I'm going to be going over today is card tossing, and just your basic mechanics for tossing cards. Now, there are a lot of different card tosses out there and ways to toss cards, but I wanted to explain the general mechanics for you beginners out there, maybe give you a few more resources to help you make up your own card tosses, and explain some of the mechanics behind commonly found tosses as well. So, without further ado, guys, let's get into card tossing. Now, the reason I'm doing card tossing, guys, is because I actually injured my hand at work. I do some landscaping work over the summer, and I caught my hand underneath a tailgate of a trailer. So, needless to say, my hands are a little bit sore, and so I'm going over and doing something a little bit more simple today. But also because I wanted to give you guys some mechanics for card tossing. So the most important part of any card toss, in my opinion, is the spin, or having a spin on the card, because what a spin allows you to do is it'll slice through the air instead of getting caught on the air like this and fluttering to the ground. The spin will allow the card to slice through the air, whether you're doing it horizontally or vertically, and it will also stabilize the card in the air, making it easier and more controllable. There are only a few maneuvers that I can think of where you're flipping a card onto the deck like that, where you don't have spin. Now, depending on what move you're doing, you can get into the spin in many different ways, and I'll explain some of those in this video to give you some inspiration. But there are just a lot of different ways to spin the card out, and you can do this in flourishes and things like that. Another thing I would note about card tossing is the control you have to have. So if you're tossing a card that's really close into your next hand like this, you're going to want a lighter toss into that hand, as opposed to tossing a card way off camera or like half an arm's length away, where you're going to need a more powerful spin and toss over to the next hand where you're going to catch it. So if you're trying to toss a card but you don't have enough power on the card, you're going to notice that it's going to catch the air and flutter to the ground. Like that. Whereas if you're tossing, you need a little bit more spin and a little bit more power to get the card shot across to your other hand. So the last part of tossing the card is really catching the card. So whether you catch it on top of the deck, whether you catch it between two fingers and you want to use it in a flourish, it's going to take a little bit of coordination in order to do that. And even catching the card in the fan and things like that, it's just going to take a little bit of practice in order to catch the card properly. So basically, that's all there is to doing your card toss. Finding a way to get the spin, of which there are multiple ways to do that. Judging how far you need to get the card to spin, so judging the power and the amount of spin you need to put on the card. And then last but not least, receiving the card. So what I'm going to do now is just show you a couple of moves that involve tossing the card, either via pressure or whatever, to get the spin going. And I'll leave links in the description box below where you can learn some of these different card tossing techniques. So how do you get that spin on the card? Well, the most common way to do it is to have the card between two fingers. You're going to curl your fingers in, flick them out slightly, and release, and the card's going to spin. Okay? So it doesn't matter where you have your hands. It could be here, could be here. This motion is going to get that card to spin no matter what, because not only do you have this card rotating via the flicking of the fingers, but you also have a little bit of friction on this finger here, which is going to help the card keep the card back and give it the spin. And like I said, you can pretty much put your hand anywhere, but I would recommend the edge, because you usually have a little bit more control over the spin at the edge, or you can do a faster spin at the edge than you can do in the center. So another thing you can do to add a little bit more spin to the card is to add some wrist movement. That's going to give you a little bit more spin and oomph to the card by adding in that wrist motion. Let's get the minds out of the gutters, guys. Just bear with me here. If you add some wrist motion to your flick of the fingers, you're going to get more spin out of the card, and it's going to stabilize easier in the air. Another thing to note about that simple two-handed toss is that it's very useful for use in flourishes. So if you're in the middle of a flourish, you can actually experiment with this and toss a card in the middle of your flourish as well, which makes it really useful for flourishing and cardistry techniques because it's so versatile when you're using it. Another card toss that you can do is one that gives you a little bit more control over the cards, and it's one I'm a really big fan of. What you're going to be doing for this card toss is you're going to bring your index finger over to the corner, your thumb's going to go in the center, and your 3 fingers are going to come along the bottom of the card, like that. So what this card toss is you're going to flick your wrist, you're going to pull down with your index finger to start the spin, and then you're going to release with your other fingers. Now this is a really good card toss for vertical tossing, horizontal tossing. I really like this one because it gives you a lot of control over that card, the spin of the card and whatnot. So I really enjoy this card toss. The only thing is it's not very versatile in flourishes because it pretty much eats up your whole hand. So card toss is really good for things like card and fan, where you're tossing the card and it goes into the fan, or when you're doing just straight card tosses into like a cut to sort of finish off a flourish. That's where I would use this card toss the most because it does give you a lot of control and power to your toss, but it's more of a finishing move instead of a move that you might use in the middle of your flourish. So the next one I'm going to do is the Top Shot by Xavier Perret, or this one was featured on Xavier Perret's channel. And what it is you're essentially squeezing the card using the pinky, so you drag the card down, you squeeze in the bottom corner with the pinky, and you're going to shoot the card out. Let me show you the 3 elements. By squeezing, at the bottom, you're going to get the rotation out because you've just got the pressure really located at the bottom. The card's going to get tossed out, so depending on how far you want it to go, you're going to squeeze more or less, and because of that pressure buildup, the card's going to shoot out, and then you just got to practice catching it in your other hand. Now another card toss variation is Cyclone by Ramsay. Now what this one is you're essentially getting into a clipped position. You're going to put pressure on the card. You're going to release with your pinky finger, flick out with your ring finger, and get the card to spin out. Now the spin happens by releasing with your pinky so the card starts to turn, and then flicking out with your ring finger causes the card to spin around the middle finger. So that's where the spin comes from. The control comes from the initial pressure you put on the card, as well as the pressure you flick out with using your ring finger. So if you want a lighter toss, you flick out lighter with your ring finger. If you want a further toss, you want to flick out a little bit harder with that ring finger. And last but not least, you have to catch it in any way you choose. Except don't be a noob like me and actually catch it. Hey guys, so that's pretty much it for me. What I really wanted to get across with this video is that there's so many different types of card toss variations, whether you're flicking it around your back or whether you're just doing some simple stuff like throwing it up in the air, or whether you're incorporating it into flourishes. There's so many different variations, but it only relies on the 3 concepts, which are spin, then controlling the spin and the strength of the toss, and then pretty much receiving the card. So whether you're tossing with just your hand or you're using pressure to toss the card and get it to spin, there are so many different ways to use it, and I'm going to leave links in the description box below to a lot of different variations, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed learning about some different mechanisms that you can use to spin cards or toss them. Thanks very much, guys, and I'll literally catch you later.